oh, you must like fantasy and not
Yeah,
horror.
that sounds exactly
So,
like what
that's
the
like the
definition allows. I don't know.
That's what I thought of when I read the definition for it. I was like, that's kind of like taking something that's just very broad that it does encompass all those things, but then just thinning it down to like what somebody would like specifically and not necessarily the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. I like the
Yeah.
word. I don't know how useful it is, but it sounds cool.
You could use it at like while you're at work. If somebody's like, oh, I'm looking for.
Can you demassify that for me?
Yeah. No, you could just like
Really break it
shooters. Well, could you demassify that, like Call of Duty or Halo?
Yeah,
Like the sci-fi shooters.
Do you like first person? Do you like third person shooters?
There you go.
Anyway,
Demassify.
speaking of fucking video games, I am super looking forward to Bloodbourne. I've been looking up some information on it. You know what pisses me off though is that there's thanks for the okay. So the word stuff is over. Anyway,
Yes.
back to
Segue.
what I want to talk about. Bloodbourne. There's a collector's edition that is not available in North America that I found.
Oh,
And
yeah?
it looks super cool. It comes with like it's got this like faux bookshelf thing with books, and then it opens up. Like I could put it on a bookshelf. It looked like books, but it's not. It's a fucking thing that holds cool stuff. Yeah, it's like a compartment. So that's cool. It comes with an ink pen with like real ink. It comes with some other cool stuff and like a soundtrack and all this other stuff, and it's not available. I can't get it.
Yeah,
so
that
it pisses me
happens.
off. It's available in Europe.
Yep, I was gonna say there was
Pisses me off. Like, what the fuck is your problem?
when Batman, I think it was Arkham Origins. I think that was anyway. One of the Batman games, I think it was Arkham Origins, but the collector's edition that was exclusive to the UK had like this really awesome statue of like Batman holding the Joker over a ledge.
Yeah.
And then the American version, the collector's edition, was just like the Joker sitting in front of some TVs, and I was like, "What the fuck? Theirs is way cooler than
Yeah,
ours.
yeah.
I want that one."
Yeah.
So that happens, unfortunately.
I think
some countries just get really cool shit that
Yeah.
they just give us the nice big middle finger.
Yeah.
You know, us Americans, we gotta have everything. How dare they exclude us?
Well, it's it's a product. It's on the market. I know about it. Well, I can't. I could get it. I guess
you
from
could.
Europe.
I guess
I
you
don't
could
want to do
pay
that
for
though.
it and import it. And
But I didn't even know it existed. So getting one now it's probably impossible. It's
Yeah.
coming out this month, so on the 24th. So and that's
you,
really soon. I'm excited about
it
that.
is. I actually was surprised. I'm
Whoa.
just gonna silence this. This
Whoa.
is getting very
yeah, your
disruptive.
fucking
I'm so
huge
sorry.
phone. Gotta have.
Yeah.
Phone. How rude.
What was I gonna say?
Fucking
Oh,
rude.
have you played the order yet? I know that you got. your copy of
I
it
started the
recently.
download last night, and it's like a fucking 2 hours to
big game.
download. It's
Yeah.
like 30 gigs or something. So while I was doing that, my internet was dying, and so it took like a half an hour to an hour to get my internet reset. I don't know why it took so long.
Your internet dies. Is it? It's like a wounded.
Well,
cat,
like
just
stopped. I was connecting to Call of Duty to play with a buddy who was online. I was going to play Call of Duty, and then it wouldn't connect to the server, so I decided to unplug my router, and I just wanted to start everything over, but it just took forever, and then for some reason it wouldn't connect to the internet at all, and so I unplugged it again, took forever again, and by the time it was back up, my friend was not online anymore, and I was playing Grand Theft Auto. So, I was just, I played Grand Theft Auto 5 on the PS4 in first-person mode, and I started to really get into it. Like, they did a really good job with that first-person mode. I wasn't really into it the first time I started playing it, but it looks great. It's a lot of fun. The first-person mode works pretty decent. I still need to figure that out pretty well. But
I want to pick it up sometime. I'm kind of waiting for like the PlayStation Network to have a sale on it. I feel like if I bought like it for $60, then like a week later they would put it on sale for like half off or something. So I'm just kind of waiting. If it goes on sale for like $20 off, I'd probably download it just to play it.
Yeah.
The Grand Theft Auto, like the online mode, is like what everybody plays, and I have a bunch of people on my friends list that play it all the time. So I would just get it mostly to do that.
Yeah.
But the order, which has been a huge hot topic lately,
Like
something
the
that I
store?
wanted to talk about. Well, the story is very
No,
good.
I said the store.
Oh, the store.
The Hot Topic, the
Oh,
store.
no.
It's like a huge,
No.
huge thing there.
And that is the subject of entertainment value as far as like a dollar amount put on your entertainment value. And at what point does it seem like a ripoff, or in what point does it seem like it was worth the money? Because the big thing that people have been kind of hampering on the order is that it's a single player only game. There's no multiplayer modes. There's not really any replay incentive unless you just want to go back and find more collectibles. There's not like a new game plus mode or anything, because there's not like a progression system. You're not like leveling up or anything. It's just like a very cinematic third person cover shooter, kind of like Gears of War and Uncharted and those games. Which I loved it. I like the cinematic story. I just like a good story, and I like the characters, and the game nails all those things on like perfectly. It's great characters, great story, great atmosphere. It's like puts you in a world that you want to learn more about. So I really loved it, and I mean shorter games doesn't bother me, but a lot of people have complained that because you can beat the game in about like 8 to 10 hours, and then after you're done with it, there's just not there's not a big reason to go back. There's not a multiplayer mode that keeps you playing it for a couple more weeks with some friends, and so people have started claiming that they felt like that was a ripoff, that it wasn't worth $60. And so this is something I wanted to chat about a little bit, because I think it's an interesting thing to bring up, because when I think of entertainment myself, as far as like a dollar value, like I take quality into effect, which that game's quality was through the roof. That aspect of it alone, I feel like it was worth the $60.
So before you go on, what is quality to you in a video game?
In a video game, that
could be different.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's got the best visuals of any game out right now.
Okay, so graphics.
Graphically, it's beautiful.
Okay,
technically, it was sound. I didn't run into hardly almost no glitches, no freezing, no popping. It was just technically well put together. It was a beautiful game. The music was amazing.
Okay,
and then the stories, characters, atmosphere, all that was really good. So it was just a very high quality.
Well done.
Like you can tell that the guys who worked on this game really put their heart and soul into it and knew what they were doing. I think the only way that it faltered was just that it's this beautiful world, but it doesn't really give you an opportunity to interact with it at all. It's mostly like a look but don't touch kind of thing, where you can look around at all these things, and there's like objects you can interact with, but there's not that many of them. It was just one of those games that my only complaint was I wish that I could have just explored more and done more and interacted with people more. But I think that just came to limitations because they spent a bunch of time building this, beautiful PS4 engine to use, because these guys had made PSP games before and then jumped to PS4. So I think they spent a lot of time and money just developing the engine to run the game. So as they were making it, they probably hit these constraints where they were like, there's only so much we can do with the budget we have. So at this point, we got to figure out what we're going to sacrifice. And I think the gameplay was something they just kind of could have done more with, but they just didn't have the time or resources or whatever. But anyway, so I feel like as far as quality goes, it was great. Like they marketed it as a cinematic third-person shooter. Like that, they said up front that it was only single player. They didn't try to mislead people into thinking that it was something that it wasn't. Like they were up front. They were like, it's a very cinematic. They even went for it has kind of like that widescreen black bars on the top and bottom of the screen, and it looks very cinematic. Like there's points in the game where you can't tell if you're supposed to be playing or not, because it's just all so seamless. So as far as what their objective was and their goal and the quality of it, I thought was great. I mean, it's not perfect. Very few games I feel like are. There's always little things that could be better. So I feel like as far as quality, it was great. So I think that people's complaints come down to just the time factor on it. So it's how I was thinking of it is so you go to the movies, right? Or even if you if you bought a movie on DVD, it's usually $20 when it first comes out, roughly.
Sure.
15 to 20. And then movies are typically 2 hours, you would say. So I mean, for 2 hours, that's $10 an hour, basically. So if you looked at it from that perspective, if your game was 8 to 10 hours with that same mindset, then you technically got $80 to $100 of entertainment dollars out of it, essentially. So I just think that people's complaints against it are just kind of weird, because I mean, if you went to a movie theater, you'd spend even more. I mean, you can look at $15, $20 for just 2 tickets to watch a movie once. And so I was curious on your thoughts as far as entertainment and dollar values, and at what point does it seem like you're being ripped off? Because even a music CD too is another example. Your average CD is about $15, 30 to 50 minutes roughly, and they're $10 to download. So almost fits into that $10 an hour entertainment dollar value. So for me, I'm listening to people complain about it, and I look at it that way, and I'm just what do you have to complain about?
I think that there's a couple different things here. One is, people complain about everything for no reason. People fucking suck. They're entitled. They think that for some reason, people owe them shit. it's a bunch of whiny, like we were talking earlier before the podcast about Louis C.K. and how people are so entitled and pampered that they just think everything should be the way they want it. Like even though someone else did all the work, all the preparation, all the research, all the stuff to put it on the market so that you could have the option to fucking use it, right? And that's really where all the effort goes into. So as far as that game specifically, the problem is that gaming, people think of it as a homogenous thing. Like, there's just video games, but that's not the case. There are lots of different types of video games. There are games that focus on open world experiences that just give you way more stuff to do than you can do, in a couple hours. Or there are types of games. So there are different genres that aren't related to like first person necessarily.
Yeah, demassify it for me.
Yeah, so you have so you have different strokes for different folks when it comes to video games, and people don't get that. They're like, well, I bought a video game, it should be like my other video games where they have this and this and this and this. But that's why people, if you're going to spend $60, do a little research, find out about what you're buying before you spend the money. You can't get your money back. Sorry, fuck you. You bought a product and you utilized it. If you don't like it, then sell it.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, you could go sell it at a secondhand store. I mean, and you could probably get like at least around $30 back on it. So
whatever, or you could sell it on Craigslist for $45.
Yeah.
I don't know what you can get, but so the issue is that it's all voluntary. They have the option. They're really just mad at themselves because they didn't like the situation and they made a bad decision. It's called buyer's remorse. People have it all the time. It's a huge problem. And that's because people don't take the time and they're not responsible.
Yeah.
They don't take the time to research it. And like, no one was saying, oh, this is an open world multiplayer game.
That's what I mean. Like, they were never misled at any point. Like,
it said, this is a storyline. We're going to give you an engaging experience with really good graphics designed specifically for the PS4, and you can choose to spend the $60 on it now to get it now, or you can wait and get it for less later. No one was forced to buy that game, and no one's entitled to an experience. I don't have to. If you go to Disneyland and one of the rides is broke down, like, that's too fucking bad. Or if you didn't like the ride, that's too fucking bad. You already paid to get into the fucking park. They're not going to give you your money back because you didn't like one of the rides. There are things on the market. You have the choice of options. You chose to buy that game. Now, as far as the industry goes, they made a good game. I don't really get it, and it has its niche. It's a small game. It's not like a game that is marketed even to a large audience. It was marketed to a smaller audience on the PS4 specifically.
And that's what I told people too. Who were like on the fence about buying them. Just like, if you like story-driven, games, and I'm like, if you like, Uncharted and Gears of War, it plays like those, and it's just very cinematic.
And you can look up hours of play. You can look up generic
fucking Twitch
information. Right. They'll just tell you, this game you can expect from 5 to 10 hours of gameplay, which is a typical game. Typical storylines.
I know. Well, that was an interesting thing. I was like, at what point in an 8 to 10 hour campaign become too short? Like, there are so many games that are out that were single player only that were that long or even shorter.
Yeah.
I mean, I've played through games that I could beat in like 4 hours.
Yeah. Well, the industry it's very diverse now compared to 10 years ago. And so the options are all there. You have tons of different experiences you can get. And it's up to people to decide what they want to spend their money on. It's not like they're being forced to do it. So no one has any room to complain about anything that somebody else creates that they could choose not to do. Like, if they make a bunch of different cars and I choose not to buy a car because of, it doesn't have this amount of gas mileage, I'm not complaining about it. I don't care that I didn't, I had the choice. And then if I buy a car that, sucks, that's my fault. So I made a bad decision. Work on that. Work on your decision making. Don't work on yelling at someone for making a product. They spend a lot of time, a lot of money on that thing.
Yeah.
They did a great job. They made it available to you dumbass fat kid sitting on a couch who just thinks that all the video games should be like, none of the video games are going to be exactly what you want. They can't cater to you. They're catering to an audience. They're catering to a larger group.
Well, that's kind of a problem too. They really hype them up a lot. Like,
they hype every game, though. They want you to buy that.
Yeah, because they want you to buy it. So they make it. Yeah. They create this like impossible idea in your mind of what the game is going to be, and then you're playing, and you're like, I mean, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's cool,
Yeah.
but not like...
Expectations go into your general outlook on stuff. Like a movie that has a ton of hype behind it, and then it doesn't deliver. It's only because you expected it to be some ideal version of it.
Yeah, movies. I always go into movies with like a pretty low expectation, like,
or just like try not to watch the trailers, because if you can just not watch anything about a movie, the movie will at least be interesting and surprising, and you'll like figure it out, and it may be different than what you expected.
Yeah.
Or you don't have any expectations. But yeah, going into it with too much expectation, like Destiny, it had like the most hype of any game I can remember ever, and to me it didn't deliver in epicness and diversity of the gameplay.
I agree completely.
So
it was like it was a good game.
Very
it's
pretty.
Just not what they were selling it.
You kind of had to play it with a friend regularly for it to be a lot of fun, and you do so much grinding in that game. It's like I didn't get what I expected, but I didn't get mad. I wasn't like they shouldn't have made this game, or this game is a ripoff. Like fuck you, you're not being ripped off when you chose to go. A ripoff would be if they lied. That's a ripoff. That's a fraud. They didn't lie about anything. Yeah. They just said, this game is awesome. Go buy it. And you go, okay. And then you didn't like it. So that's life. Shit happens, you know? Like that, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a good topic. It's interesting. There's a whole job which is just criticizing things. Yeah. That's a job people have in life.
Well, even in like the game critics for the game, like the critic like review scores were very like polarizing. You know, they would be as low as
expectations,
like a 4 out of 10 up to like a near perfect score. And I watched a review for it that was really good. They gave it like an 8 out of 10, and they were just like, how could anybody rate this game any lower than like a 6 out of 10? Because in the minds of gamers, once something's below like a 5, it's usually not worth your time at all. Even like a 6 or a 7, that means you should just wait till it's like in the bargain bin or something.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how can you take a game like this that clearly had all these wonderful elements and was marketed as such, and then delivered on basically all those fronts, and then say that it's a 4 out of 10, which is in the mind of gamers is like a broken game. Right. Like it's illogical. It didn't even make sense. He's like, there's no way that it could have gotten a review score that low from anybody. It just is like insensible. And so I don't know if that's
not a word.
Yeah, I know. Unsensible. That's what I meant to say.
Unsensible.
Yes. So I thought that was interesting too. It was just an interesting game. It's the first game that's come out in a long time that just had a lot of controversy around it and was very polarizing. There's people who love that game, myself included, and then people who are just like, what a pile of garbage. And I'm like playing it, and I'm like, how can anybody who rated Gears of War highly or Uncharted highly play this and then not be like, this is great? Like it blew my mind a little bit.
I don't think they come from the perspective of like what it took to make that game and what they were going for with the game. It's an art project. Games are art to me. They're interactive art. Yeah. That's it. It's just a really like the coolest type of art because it involves graphic design, which is an art form, and it involves storytelling, which is an art form, and it involves an interaction with the audience, which is a new type of art form. Yeah. And so, it's art, and if just look at it, from whatever perspective you want. But if they criticize it, that's why I don't listen to critics. They're just they just criticize everything on an emotional basis. Like, I wanted it this way, and I didn't get it. I didn't get my way. Boo hoo.
I just I used to like live and die by critics before I would invest in anything, and I've kind of like as I've gotten older I've just been like I'll usually read them just to see what they say about it, but then I'm just like, well, like with The Order, I read the reviews before it came out, and I was like, I don't care, I want to play that game, like I don't give a shit. Sure. It's just nice to read because sometimes there'll be like a glaring like glitches or something like that. It's like this game is half baked and they're just throwing it out there, and so like that kind of stuff is a nice warning. But when it's something like that had none of those problems, and it's just people just didn't like it,
it's important to be critical, but to not be so don't use so much exaggeration. Don't be like, oh, this is a ripoff. That's like slander. Like you're just kind of like making it sound like the company was trying to ruin people's lives. Ha ha ha, like there's some evil thing. Like they just made a thing that, it's good to be super critical, especially if you're going to spend a lot of money or even just a little bit of money. Figure out what you're buying and be critical of what's going to happen. But look at the facts. Don't look at some critic going, it's a ripoff and they should be torn from limb to limb. You know what I mean? It's like this exaggeration, like all or nothing kind of situation or whatever. But lots of games come out and they don't deliver what I expected, and that's the case, and that's fine.
I honestly think that open world games are just become an even bigger fad.
They need to work on that.
I think it's because developers are just like, oh, well, it's open world. Like, we're giving them a lot of content for their dollar and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that you get games like Dying Light and stuff where they're pretty interesting, but it's a lot of, like, fluff. It's a lot of, collect 15 of this item and bring it back to this guy and then just go do... And it's like, well, that was what's nice about The Order is it just told you a fucking awesome story and you were in the moment the whole time. Everything you did mattered. It wasn't... You weren't wasting time doing meaningless, mind-numbing tasks. And that's my problem with open world games is some of them are done well, but most of them get very repetitive because that's how they make it so long is they create half a dozen to a dozen activities and you just repeat those activities over and over until you finish the game. So
and you're running around a lot. I think that what open world games need is to create more realistic, more dynamic, and more randomly generated stuff so that it really feels like every time you walk around a corner something new can happen. So that it's more more like real life but much more exciting and your character can do cool stuff. Like as opposed to this, you have a billion things on your map. Go to those things and do what it says. That's just gets boring and is going to weigh down the genre and just kind of I think that just gets boring. Because I've already done that. That was exciting 5 years ago when there were no games like that. When Elder Scrolls Oblivion came out, and you're like, oh my god, I can do whatever I want. And then, but if they create a situation where like random shit happens and your character, like just something, unexpected can happen and it won't happen again or whatever. That's I think the future of open world stuff is this randomly generated kind of missions on the fly as well as an overarching kind of theme and philosophy and storyline, because you need a story. Video games without I guess it's Minecraft without that, then it's just a
Well, I feel like
you know what I mean. Like Minecraft doesn't have a story. Who gives a shit? You don't.
Yeah, I think that games like Dark Souls and Bloodbourne probably they don't really like they have a very loose plot.
Yeah, the
but
story's
it's more
different.
about just giving you an excuse to be dropped into this world, and then those games are just a very.
But they're
cool
very mysterious and dark and stuff. So that's part
they
of
don't they don't hold your hand at all. It's just like a trial and error process, and you just start to learn what works. And I think those games are really exciting because there's no hand holding.
Yeah.
Those are things that I like to play when I'm not interested in a story. I'm just like, I just want to play something where I got to focus and like be creative. And it's like a lot of problem solving too. You're like, how this guy just ripped me apart in like 2 days. How what am I going to do to beat this guy?
That's what I like is the non-hand holding because that creates communities of people who have to talk about their experiences, because that's how you would learn in Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 is you can watch a walkthrough, but it doesn't necessarily always help. It's always, and even if it does, you end up coming up with your own ways to do things, and it's really good to learn about, and you definitely have to focus. Like there's a game called Geometry Wars. Have you ever played that? And there's no story. It's an arcade game, so it's just like Asteroids or something, but like to the max. Like it's just fucking crazy, and it's just it's just really concise problem solving, puzzle solving kind of situation where it just engages your mind in a different way that is not like you can just screw up a million times and there's no consequences or you just start over every time. I mean, in Geometry Wars you can do that, but at the same time you the goal is to just never die. So it's very intense and the amount of focus you have to have is very strong with this one.
With that one.
Anyway, that's just a fun game in general. But I'm very excited about Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, even The Witcher. I don't know much about it, but I from what I've seen, it seems like it'll be fun.
The Witcher is going to be, I think, really great. But I hope it doesn't fall into the pit of other open world games where you're just kind of like, oh, go hunt this thing, and then they just like put a marker on your map, and then you just go to
you ride your
fight something,
fucking horse of 45 miles, and then you're there, and you do it, and then you screw up, and you have to start over.
I think if you made an open world game well enough, like with how you're talking about like all the randomization of like real life, you almost wouldn't even need a story. You could almost just like be like, hey, here's the world. Just like we're gonna drop you in, you're gonna make a guy.
You have AI just doing all the work,
and then just go.
Characters have lives, like Sims, you know, where they have jobs and they have lives and they have interactions, and it's all just very organically generated. And then like you talk to some guy in a bar and he says, oh, I'm having a problem with my wife. She's sleeping with this guy, and then you can decide you want to do something about it. You know what I mean? Like it could just be like that. And then shit can just get crazy, and there's gangs, and they find out about you. You know what I mean? And that could just be completely randomly generated.
That'd be like a great game that you would have conversations with people like, oh yeah, no, I like busted this guy's cheating wife, and then his like gang of buddies chased me.
Mafia.
And the other guy would just be like, oh no, I watched TV in the game.
Yeah.
On my TV.
I was playing Grand Theft Auto, and they have some randomly generated stuff in there. And I'm walking around, and there's just a dog, and it's just walking, and then it just stops by this guy. And it just sits down and starts staring at this guy who's having a conversation with another guy. And I'm like, was that dog his? Or did it just roam around until it found somebody? I don't even get what the programming is like. And then I, proceeded to beat the shit out of those two guys because they were looking at me. I don't appreciate that in Grand Theft Auto. People don't look at me. I had a guy, he was playing a guitar on the pier, and I just walked up to him and like I ran into him, and he dropped his guitar, and he was like, "What, man?" He starts fighting me, and then two other dudes start fighting me, and I'm just like running for my life with no health because I just murdered these guys, and the cops are coming after me, and I jump in the water. But that's the kind of stuff that's kind of fun, and that's why Grand Theft Auto is an open world, but it's so much. There's so much going on that you can kind of just play around, and it's not too rigid as far as the missions.
Well, the Grand Theft Auto games they've never really boiled down to. I mean, you have like your story missions, and then they have like the side activities.
They don't do a lot of fetch stuff,
but it's not a lot of it's not a lot of fetch stuff. Yeah. It's not a lot of capturing outposts or whatever. It's and I think it's because there's like Rockstar's so good at just creating an interesting world that people just want to explore it for the sake of exploration. Yeah. Same with like Red Dead. I just remember cruising or at least riding my horse around and just checking out the random things that you could see. And,
man. I love Red Dead.
I can't wait for them to just do another one.
I had a kid tell me the other day, and he was like, "Oh yeah, they're talking about Red Dead 2. There was a leaked thing online." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll believe it when I see it."
Yeah, I don't ever.
I don't want to get my hopes up.
Yeah,
but if they do a Red Dead with first person with really smooth shooting, then it'll be even better for me because I like first person. I like to be able to go back and forth. I really do. Like sometimes I want first person, sometimes I don't. But then the problem is that so you have a new Red Dead. It's first person. It's open world, and then they come out with a new Fallout, right? Because Bethesda's doing this thing at
they're doing
E3.
an E3 conference this year.
Yeah, Kyle was talking about that, and he was just like, "Oh, there's something happening."
First one that they've ever done. They've never had a conference before at E3 dedicated to themselves.
So let's say they say there's Fallout 4 coming, right? So it's going to be first person or third person, open world. And hopefully they fix the shooting because the shooting in all the Fallout games and the general first-person combat in the Bethesda games is not very smooth. It's pretty wonky. I think it's
because it's so RPG focused that it's like you can do it, but it's meant to use that VAT system.
Yeah, and I was curious if they would bring VATs back or if they get rid of it. I hope they do because VATs is awesome, but I hope that they also integrate a very smooth shooting first-person style because you have the hardware to do it. Just do it. Just make it so I can actually use my gun.
Like Far Cry has done a great job melding shooting and RPG elements.
Absolutely. Together. So if they do something similar like that with Fallout, but then you're going to have two more massive open world games that just have so much content and so much stuff. Like that's why I think VR will come in handy with any first person open world game because that's what VR I think is about is just making it so that when you're playing it just becomes more immersive.
Yeah.
And that way you can just really get into the role of a character in a world as opposed to like other things like The Order. You don't need the Oculus for that. You just play it and it's like a movie. You just get into it and it's over after a little bit and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think first-person games, that's all the VR focus. Did you see that Valve and HTC are now doing their own virtual reality headset?
No,
they just announced that recently. Yeah.
What is it called? Do you know?
I don't know. They might have given a name. I just weren't paying attention completely. I just saw that they were working on one. So now you got Sony doing one, Samsung's doing theirs. You've got the Oculus Rift. Now you've got
Microsoft has talked about doing one as well.
Microsoft will at some point. With everybody else doing them, of course they're going to throw their hat in the ring. And
well, I can't wait 2 or 3 years down the line after these have become commercially available, and then they do some innovation, and then 3 years from now the VR is going to be fucking awesome.
Well, hopefully it takes off, because I feel like that 3D was they were trying to make it a big thing, and I don't think that ever took off like they wanted it to. Now it's kind of just moved on to VR.
It hasn't taken off for individuals, but it's definitely made a shit ton of money in the theaters.
Yeah.
I mean, people love that
I just mean from a video game standpoint. They were kind of pushing it, but you had to invest in a 3D TV, and those are they're probably still really expensive. I haven't looked at the price
3D
of one in a while.
TVs?
Yeah.
I don't know. Mine's expensive.
So I think that they probably just kind of let it go, and now their new focus is virtual reality. Because I think that with virtual reality, you can probably make a peripheral that you don't need to spend $3,000 on a TV to use it. It'll probably be maybe a $400 or $500 headset, or hopefully cheaper. But
I think it'll be cheaper, and I think that it'll. If they can do it well with low latency, good graphics, well designed, integrates well with your system, then I think that it'll do well. The problem is that a lot of that 3D stuff just wasn't implemented very well. It was too soon.
Yeah, it was just kind
too
of
small of a market,
like a little gimmick.
And I think that they'll if people want it, it'll be successful. If people don't want it, then fuck it. It's not necessary. We'll get rid of it and do something else. We'll plug in Matrix style or something like that.
Always comes back to the Matrix all the time.
Yeah, everything does, because it was the first. It's our reference as far as digital worlds. Yeah. There were obviously things before it, but that was the biggest one. It's easy to go to.
Would have been
Yeah, Tron. I mean, there's always been, ever since computers were created, people have been thinking about how we can get into them. And then worried about them taking over and robots
everybody.
And, all this stuff.
You can blame the Terminator for that shit.
Yeah, the Terminator did not help in that way. Because he wanted to terminate everybody. He was a Terminator.
Yes.
Yeah. Austrians. Cool. I think this is good. I think we can end there. I wanted to mention, since we were talking about relationships, a good book that I would recommend is the Real-Time Relationships book by Stefan Molyneux. It's free. The audio and the a digital download, PDF form, are free, and I think you can buy it off of Amazon, or maybe get it free off of Amazon or something. It's on the freedomainradio.com website under the books section. It's a really good book on just kind of how to look at a relationship, and real-time relationships relates to expressing yourself in the moment and saying things that are honest about yourself in that moment. So real time, as in, I'm feeling sad, as opposed to saying you're making me sad. You just say, I'm feeling sad. I don't know exactly what it is. It may or may not be something that you've done, or you might have just triggered something from, my life or something. So it's kind of, it talks about that, and it talks about love, and how, it talks about some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier. So I'd recommend that. And I'd recommend Bloodbourne. Buy a PS4.
Yeah.
Buy Bloodbourne.
March 24th.
And then throw your controller at your new PS4, because you're going to get very frustrated. It looks fucking difficult.
Yeah. I mean,
looks super fast.
You can take a lot more hits, it looks like, than you could in the other ones, from the demos I've watched. But it seems like the enemies are a little bit more quick and vicious. So
they seem super fast paced. Yeah. I was watching a video of one of the new beasts they just or bosses that they announced, and it's this electrified, crazy creature that's massive, and it just never stops. You're just running in, running out. This guy he used like 10 or 11 of these. They look like they're like potion, the
little blood vials.
Yeah, the blood vials. And he was healing himself just a million times. It was kicking his ass, and then he ended up dying, only getting the thing down about halfway. So it's definitely going to be a difficult game.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to do something new with that Dark Souls style.
Yeah, I think it's going to be probably the first really big hit of this year, I think.
There's no strategy guide.
Yeah, I'm gonna. There is a strategy guide.
It's coming out.
It's
not available.
Not available that I've seen. Yeah, because I was looking into like maybe trying to pre-order one or something.
I'm gonna get one.
Because those are the games that I need a strategy. I just like the guide. Yeah, they're incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't seen one. It might be something you just have to order online or something.
Maybe. Yeah, it might just not be available easily.
But anyway,
balls
and balls apparently.
Kiss all the lovely people who listen to and watch us.
They feel it on their cheeks so warmly.
I love you, people.
I love you, people.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks.
Well, good night and good luck, everybody. Stay safe out there.